Ryan, you want to say
Yeah,
something?
I got it. Yeah. See, I saw Dr. Major 11 years ago for muscle weakness. Immediately threw the book at it, trying to figure out what it was. Uh, 5 months later, and with different testing, he thought it could be ALS, some type of ALS, or or something else. They shot me, so they sent me down to UW, like another year down there, getting prodded and poked, and then after a year down there, they had decided, I can't remember the doctor's name. Oh, he's well known too. I just slipped my mind what his name is.
Dr. Ravitz?
No. Anyway, so about a year down with UW, they came back and said, "Hey, we've all concluded, that it's ALS, but yeah, they gave you the typical, and then shot me back up to Major, who was wonderful up at every clinic." And so all in all, it was probably 18 months from my first symptoms. Just, I think I was golfing with my brother, and he saw me coming off one of the holes limping, and he was like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "Oh, I think I'm out of shape." And then
Okay, thank you. Who else would like to talk about their diagnostic process? Okay. Alicia, group?
Well, about 2018, she started noticing some weakness in her hand as well as her speech. And everyone was concerned that maybe she had a stroke or some brain disorder. And so she had brain scans, a spine scan as well. And finally in 2020 is where we really were diagnosed correctly as to what was going on. And of course, we had no idea that was even the outcome. Excuse me. So yeah, very challenging. However, we were both relieved that now we know what's been going on.
You said about a 2-year journey to find out what it was.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how about Eric? Go ahead. Dr. Eric.
I probably had the fastest ever diagnosis of ALS because, as a physician, I knew what I had before I told anyone something was wrong. We went bowling for my twin boys' birthdays in April, and I was the gutter ball, falling down on my first throw. Then I was in Salt Lake City for a medical conference in May, and walking around downtown I noticed I had foot drop on the left. In June I developed fasciculations, or muscle twitching, all over my body. I knew I had ALS. After a month I finally told my wife, Andrea, knowing our relationship would never be the same. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Over lunch on a Monday in July, I called a colleague who did most of the nerve studies for my patients. I told him I had foot drop and fasciculations all over, and he told me to come to his office after work that day. The studies suggested ALS. I saw a neurologist on Wednesday, and I had a second nerve study on Friday that confirmed the diagnosis. So, it was only 5 days from telling anyone until the diagnosis. Denial wasn't ever an issue because the diagnosis was my idea.
Okay, that's the first time I've ever heard that particular sequence. But yeah, it says knowing how you told it was how you told others, and that's a real reverse on that. How about Chantel and Nick?
Hello. Chantel started having bulbar onset symptoms in January of 2020. Of course, she was in denial until about July. And you remember in 2020, we were in a bit of a situation with getting the doctors and things. So from there, from July of 2020, it took about 9 months to get her diagnosis. She's finally diagnosed April 1st of last year with bulbar.
Thank you. Any other hands up, or if I miss you, then wave hard so I get you.
How about Mike Hatley, did you want to talk about your diagnosis process?
Yeah, I can. My voice is having a little problems, but
Oh, and you don't have to either. I just didn't want to leave you out.
no, I'll be there. So in late 2016, I was starting to show weakness. My bowling league, throwing my 14-pound ball, I had to go to a 12. In 17, I was riding my mountain bike, and as the summer went on, instead of getting stronger, I was getting weaker. In 2018, I started, falling occasionally, thinking, wow, I'm clumsy, and had some twitching of the fingers. Fast forward a little bit, because that's where we had some deaths in the family and other things took priority. In early 2020, I quit bowling because I couldn't throw the ball, pain in my right wrist. I originally got diagnosed with carpal tunnel syndrome and median ulnar nerve compression. So they did a surgery on my arm to fix all that. And then after 6 months, I wasn't getting any better. So they did some PT, and for another 4 months, and then all of a sudden the therapist saw some atrophy in my hand. I then went to a neurologist and got diagnosed with Mad Sam disease, which mimics the muscle atrophy, and I got put on IVIG treatments every 3 weeks. I did that for 6 months, and then I was having troubles walking. So then I went for another nerve study, and because of retiring somebody out on maternity leave, the doctor I was supposed to see on that nerve study wasn't around. So it took a little time, but it finally got in because I was a little worried because the technician had red marks like a Christmas tree all over the thing. When I got in, Dr. Zhang re-examined me and thought it was ALS. Went up to Dr. Chapin and he confirmed it. That was last year, November.
Oh, wow, not too long ago. So back on the diagnosis, maybe this is a multi-pronged question. How were you informed? What were you told? And then what do you wish you had been told? And what information was presented well and what was useful, what wasn't? So talk about that diagnostic process. How you
I wish the original neurologist looked a little closer at the chemical makeup of my spinal tap, because the one protein that was elevated, I found it online that to be Mad Salmon needed to be over 100. Mine was only like 68. But because it was elevated, she threw it into the Mad Sam. As for the ALS diagnosis, that went pretty fast. They told me everything. Dr. Chapin told us just enough on the first visit so we could go home and digest it. 2 weeks later, we came back and got a major download of what we're gonna do. It was a stumbling block at the beginning. One problem is I did have carpal tunnel, so they fixed that, but because that was the problem, they didn't look for anything else. So
say?
I don't know if the nerves at that point looked damaged. I wasn't in my arm, so I don't know, but I got some pretty scars.
Thank you. Dean, how about you?
For me, it was, I'm like Eric. I'm the fifth one. Soon as I started having, I couldn't stand on my tiptoe, I already knew. Went to my primary care. She said, that's what it looks like. And I asked my primary care to send me to get an EMG with Dr. Chapin. And she did. And he says, this is weird. You're coming at me this way rather than getting a diagnosis and then me doing it. So I already knew. I was the fifth one and watched my family go through it. And I think the rest of it, how did I get it? I didn't. I already knew. Yeah, like I said, I'm like Eric. I already knew. One thing I would like to say, and I don't think we have anybody here that has had this, but I've heard a lot of horrible stories, horrible neck surgery. I mean, all kinds of things they've had to do to get there. And it's just absolutely maddening, not what's happened to me, but to a lot of other folks. And it's heartbreaking to hear their stories, really.
Chantel, do you want to share your story?
I'll speak. Yeah. So mom wrote down some responses to the questions in advance. So I'm just going to read from her or read what she wrote. She prefers that I read this in a sexy voice. So I will try my, I will try my best. But regarding the diagnosis, she says, I was informed at an in-person appointment with my neurologist. At that point, I was so thankful to have an answer as to what was wrong with me. I have no negative perceptions about how I was informed. It was an overload of information that left me very overwhelmed and very emotional for another 9 months. I'm the kind of person that wants to research everything and do something. I think my reaction was due to my personality type and not anything that the ALS team did wrong. It's a devastating diagnosis for a young feeling 48-year-old.
That's very well said. Thank you. How about Ryan?
Yeah, I probably have to, I think my sentiments or my feelings probably the same as Chantel is where I can't complain. Like I said, Dr. Major up at Everett Clinic was, he beat around the bush. He was, told me what was up, what his suspicions were, and then as soon as the guys at UW knew, they told me, and I don't know how you tell. I don't know how you do it, but there's no complaints. It's a hard job.
Yeah.
So,
How about Leisha?
Dr. Chapin was amazing. We went through the test and he said, now for the bad news. Straight to the point, professional, very caring, gave us a load of information. And he said, I know this is a lot. We're going to schedule another time in 2 weeks, but these are some people to get a hold of. Very caring. I cannot say that enough. Professional and very, very blessed that we've worked with Dr. Chapin.
Okay, well, thank you. That's way different than we've heard in the past when we've done ALS Forum. So something is improving, at least in the diagnosis and the delivery of information. So good to hear that. How you're
I went to see Dr. Mike Elliott at Virginia Mason in Seattle for diagnostic confirmation. He's a specialist and was compassionate and capable. He did a bunch of labs to rule out other things. I'm probably the only guy who was ever disappointed that I couldn't tell my wife I had syphilis.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's funny. So let's talk about how progressions, and I'll come back to Eric, I bet he has this prepared, about how your progressions have progressed over time. And also, when you're fatigued, what happens to your body? This surprised me when I took the first person over to Seattle to go to the ALS clinic at the time when there was only one in Seattle. And I was really, I thought I knew a lot about ALS until I spent a weekend with her and taking care of her. And then I found out I didn't. So about what happens over time, and if
I have been fortunate to have relatively slow progression. I was pretty normal for about a year, and we didn't even tell our kids, second grade and kindergartners at the time, for over a year until we had to explain why I wouldn't be skiing that winter. I developed foot drop on the right. Then one day I couldn't use a nail clippers with my left hand, which was eventually followed by right hand weakness. I used a walking stick, then two, then a walker. At about 4 years, I started using a manual wheelchair. That was about the time I began to notice some subtle difficulty speaking and swallowing. About 6 years ago, I did a bunch of medical things I had been ignoring for a little too long. I got my first power wheelchair. I drove it with a special headrest that had 3 sensors. I also had a G-tube placed because my lung function had dropped below 50%. I didn't use it for several years, but there were higher complications with the surgery if I waited and lung function was worse. I also started using BiPAP at night. It's similar to CPAP for sleep apnea, but it has different pressures for inhalation and exhalation. About 6 years ago, I was having trouble using a computer, so I got a Surface Pro 4 tablet with a Tobii eye gaze bar that tracks the red reflex of both eyes to know where I'm looking. It has a keyboard to type, and I'm probably 20 to 30 words per minute with word prediction that learns from my previous typing. It also has a variety of mouse functions and an interface with Windows. I can do nearly anything that you can on a computer. I use a text-to-speech program to say anything I want. I couldn't imagine life without it. A year and a half ago, I was struggling to breathe, so I got a tracheostomy and use a ventilator to breathe. I'm so much more comfortable now and can concentrate and be more productive. The doctor was confused because I was crying in the hospital because it was such a relief to be breathing easily. Now, I have a little leg and neck movement. I get all my nutrition through my G-tube, and I use my computer to speak. I joke that I run on batteries, and my body is just a shell to support my brain.
Chantel, let's hear from your group.
Chantel believes she's experienced a slow progression. Over the course of this, she's lost 40 pounds. I can only say about 5 words and opted for a feeding tube. Her tongue and lips don't really function anymore. She's got muscle atrophy throughout her body. She has limited strength and flexibility in her arms and shoulders, and lost some fine motor skills and some strength in her hands. But her lower body really hasn't been affected so far, so she has good mobility and is able to hike and still get around just fine. She definitely sleeps more and takes more naps. She really wasn't much of a nap taker before this.
Okay, Alicia?
So just a year ago, she was still walking and could still speak quite a bit and still eat quite a bit. And since then, she's lost her ability to speak, to swallow, to walk. And her hands, of course, are inoperable. So yeah, in 1 year's time, it's been amazing at the progression.
Oh, yes.
And
So-
she did go with a feeding tube, however, it failed. And so that didn't work out. So we are just doing what we can do.
Yeah. So who does her hair and makeup? She looks lovely.
I do.
Wow.
I do it all. But
Wow.
it's easy to take care of my queen, and it's an
Yeah.
honor.
She's truly lovely. Are you still typing? Are you still able to text and stuff on the phone?
Yeah, she does it with her little finger. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Who wants to talk about their progression? I wasn't keeping very good track, so I don't want to.
I can.
Okay.
So it started with my right hand, kind of moved up through my arm. In the last year, I've lost total control of this arm. And then this hand is showing atrophy and I can't extend my index finger. My right ankle is now giving me the most problem. I've been walking with a cane for the last year. And in a couple weeks, I start the process for a powered wheelchair. In the last year also, I've had more phlegm. My speak has slowed down. But it's kind of hard to judge it right now because I'm now one to tell you that ALS and COVID don't mix.
Oh, my goodness.
I had it 2 weeks ago. Didn't lose my taste. Didn't have a fever, but troubles breathing and energy level was tanked for 3 days. I no longer have any symptoms, but it left me with more throat issues. So, but we should hopefully still be getting better. I haven't gotten my energy level up yet either. So I plan my trips from one side of the house to the other.
Mhm.
That's where I'm at.
Thank you. You know, that's where the ice bucket came in, with the idea that you only have a bucket full of energy, and when it's depleted, that bucket is gone. And it takes days to refill, not hours or minutes or a half hour. A half hour rest is not going to recharge you. It takes a long time to fill your energy bucket. And that is kind of, as I understood it, that was where the idea for the ice bucket came in.
Well, one more thing about energy level. If I start getting like soreness in my back and leg, then I go lay down and I'm good in a couple hours. But if I fight through it, that's when it takes 2 days to recover.
I'm gonna skip down a little bit and talk about treatment. What does your healthcare team look like? Who is on your healthcare team?
Actually, I had two teams. I have a private team, and I have, since I'm a veteran, I have a VA team, and they're almost identical as far as the structure, because I think the same guy, you'll know the doctor, whoever organized this. I've got the same structure on both locations. The military takes care 100% of everything. Everything I think I want or maybe want, I get. And it's hard in some of our also meetings where I have everybody else there, because I see people that mom and dad, they have no money, and I know I'm getting all of this stuff. It's just super hard to watch these little mom and pops, and it's all she can do to take care of him, and she has no one else there. But I have in my teams, I have a neurologist, I have a pulmonologist, I have a physiatrist, have speech therapy, PT, got an RN, dietitian, we got everything, and I've got it at both locations. The Center of Excellence that Glenn was talking about, John Chapin's team, a great team, and they have the same thing, and it's fantastic. If I can't get what I need at one location, I get it at the other, so I work the system.
And we have pharmacists here. Do you see anybody do you have any pharmaceuticals that you use to help you with muscle relaxation or anything?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I do. I'll tell you my meds that I do. Because of fasciculations, I started with baclofen, and it caused me to start peeing myself. So I said, let's not do this one. We traded that one out for tizanidine, and that's working fantastic. I take Ryuzol, which is a pretty standard one for folks with ALS, and I just started on Adaverone or Radicava, and that's working out well as far as physiologically. And then pretty outgoing guy, didn't realize I was depressed, but I started isolating myself, so I started doing head meds. I take Wellbutrin to kind of help minimize the depression, and I'm kind of a ADHD guy, so I have a Concerta or methylphenidate to help focus me. So that's all my meds right there.
And you can pronounce them all. That was impressive.
Until about 4 years ago, I attended the nearest multidisciplinary ALS clinic in Spokane. Each visit, I would see not just the doctor, but also respiratory therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, a dietitian, a social worker, and a care services coordinator with the ALS Association. Now there's not much new to do for me, so we stopped making the 4-hour drive. Now I just see my primary care physician who can manage any problems that arise. I have wonderful certified nurses aides that come every morning to get me out of bed, bathe, and into my chariot for the day.
Chantel attends the multidisciplinary ALS clinic at St. Luke's quarterly, when she sees nutritionist, physical therapist, neurologist, physiatrist, respiratory therapist, and speech therapist. She takes riluzole, Nudexta, atropine drops, and glycopyrrolate for the drooling.
So the Nudexta is for pseudobulbar effect, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. The pseudobulbar effect is where crying and
Yeah, that's
and laughing can occur when you're not happy and when you're not sad.
shouldn't
Respective.
yeah, it helps the mood. No crying.
Yeah.
No more crying.
Alicia, would you like to talk about your progression?
Well, let's see. So she does duloxetine, baclofen, warfarin because she has a protein S deficiency. She quit taking riluzole about a month ago.
For drooling.
No, just for the ALS.
Okay, yeah, that's okay.
And then she's on some pain meds that we're with hospice now and have been for about the last 2 weeks.
And are you still using the ALS team at St. Luke's? Or?
Well, the last one was in July when we were notified that she has maybe 3 to 6 months left. And so we're due in October. But the clinics are incredible. The same with Chantel and Dean. So super great people, caring, knowledgeable, and supportive. Especially a shout out to Brandy, the respiratory therapist. And again, I can't say enough about Dr. Chapin. So,
Ryan, did you want to talk about your healthcare team? Are you similar?
I was able to get by up until a couple of years ago, just regular clinic in every 3 months or so. But as soon as I went into my wheelchair, I started getting home health services. Yeah, and I have a nurse that comes by once a week. Bath aid 3 times a week. If I speech therapist on demand and PT, OT. And OT is huge. I don't know how you do it outside the home. I mean, when you're trying to figure out how to move in the bed, how to get around your kitchen or whatever. I don't know how you do it anywhere but someone's house, so that's the biggest help for me is having that home health service. I use Centerwell right now. It used to be Kindred. And they're great. I still have the clinic team at St. Luke's, and they're wonderful. And the home health uploads their notes. So Dr. Morrill, Chapin, I work a lot with Morrill because I was his patient before they started the clinic up. But I have a good relationship with him, so he keeps an eye on me. I think it makes him feel better too when he has to hear from me. He could kind of check out the notes from the home health. But for me, the home health is where it's at. I would recommend it to anyone. In addition to your 3-month, 6-month clinic, I think you have to have it. They're so helpful. There's so many tools, so many ideas out there that just a wealth of knowledge. You get people out there just to shoot stupid little fixes at you, make your life better.
Thank you. So we have athletic trainers in this room. Did any of you use any kind of a trainer when you were first diagnosed or?
I'll go ahead and address it.
Okay.
I did, and my onset was lower neuron, started on my right ankle, and then it's slowly gone to my left. But I tell you one thing, for especially for those PT guys, this AFO, ankle foot orthotics, has been an absolute lifesaver. Wow, that's hard to see, isn't it?
Yeah,
Give me just a second. I have technology issues here. Let's see.
well, virtual backgrounds always blur everything but you.
Yeah, I'm about to fix that. There we go. So this is called an AFO, an ankle foot orthotics. And it, because I've had, like some of the others had a drop foot, this right here keeps my foot up, keeps me from having to lift my hip to get over, and saves me a ton of energy. So if folks start off with drop foot or anything like that, I highly encourage them to get an AFO, because it has added miles and miles to my life. So that's one of the treatments I absolutely love.
So we're going to wind up here, but I want to talk about quality of life, like, and you could address any of these. I suggested things like, how have your priorities changed? And also, when you are out in public or in a clinic, how do you want to be treated? Do you want somebody to come over and open the door for you, or open your car door, or pick something off a shelf for you? And the other one was what scares you and what gives you hope. So you can address any of those. Eric, if you want to first, Mike, do you want to go first?
Pretty much yes to the all. As I lose my hands and I can't grab that door, it's always good for somebody to grab it. When my wife is pushing me with a wheelchair, we're always very thankful for anybody who opens the door for us. Yeah, it's anybody just friendly is all it. We don't want anything big bound over for us or feeling sorry. It's just friendly and helpful if they can. Back to the last question though, is I also see the people at St. Luke's, and I have a pulmonologist down here and my primary, and then I also go to therapy down here 3 times a week.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. Let's go to Chantel and then I'll go to Eric.
All right, and I'll speak again for Mom. She says, my priorities have definitely changed. I cashed out part of my retirement and bought a Corvette.
Yes, she did.
I
Yeah.
love it.
She says,
What color? What color?
what's the exact color though?
Ceramic metallic
It's fancy.
gray. I don't know. It looks white in the day and it looks gray in the evening. It's the strangest color you've ever seen.
Beautiful. Yeah. She says, my family, friends, and I have been focused on making memories, traveling and getting together more often than before. My friends have been coming up with nonverbal activities lately. This is amazing, and I'm so thankful for their thoughtfulness. This has been the blessing of this disease, living each day as if it could be my last few. And in regard to how she wants to be treated, she wants to be treated as the same as everyone else. Her personality and brain haven't changed one bit. She says, I'll ask for help if I need it. I'm stubborn, but I'm not going to waste my time opening a jar if someone can help me. I really appreciate a sense of humor, so it's okay to tease me and joke around. I just ask that you be patient as I type my responses on my text-to-speech app.
Eric, do you want to comment?
My priorities have completely changed over the past 11 years. I worked part-time for 2.5 years until my patients were to get surgical gloves on. We then decided to homeschool our kids so we could be together as a family and they could help with caregiving as my disease progressed. I live to be a positive influence for my family, and my motto has been, today is the best day I have today. Initially, I didn't know how long I'd live, but now my daughter is a senior in high school. It's not always easy, but I still believe life is better with me in it than not. It's become humorous that as my disease has progressed, many people speak loudly and slowly to me, as if I were mentally as well as physically disabled. Here's a funny story. A few years ago, my family was up skiing the same day as Special Olympics. The only place for me in the lodge was in the bar where many Special Olympics participants were congregated. Someone left a medal on the table next to me. A woman came up to me and pointed to the medal and said in a loud voice, "Looky what someone got." I actually enjoy going out in public and breaking stereotypes and teaching people about ALS. People are fascinated with my technology and the eye gaze computer, the ability drive interface I use on my computer to drive and control my chair, and the text-to-speech app I use to talk. I welcome eye contact, smiles, and questions.
Thank you. Alicia.
I think the biggest frustration that she has is the inability to speak. And so she's constantly saying, you know, when we meet people, can you please let them know why I can't reply back? But has her priorities changed? Absolutely. But she says that happiness is a choice. And so she does that on a regular basis.
Wow.
And her biggest thing is missing out with the future. We have 16 grandchildren, and between us, we have 7 kids. So that was her big scare. But you know, her hope are she still wants to be social. So we have people coming over left and right, and the biggest thing about Alicia is she's always happy. And I am the luckiest man in the world because I know exactly how precious each day is. So we're thankful for that.
How about Ryan?
I think one thing I haven't heard really get talked about at all, and I get it, is the pain. My whole disease has been, man, my muscles hurt. They've been hurt forever. Your joints, you know, went from something you couldn't ignore to something you can't talk about. And just treating the pain on a daily basis as a result of that exhaustion, you know, from some muscles doing what other ones can't. You know, that's a challenge on a regular basis, especially now. So I mean that's something that lately has been very difficult to get around over the last 3 years. You'll know where it was 10 years ago. You know, they're giving you everything. Now you can't get anything at all. I mean, I'm lucky enough now to have doctors give me what I need to make me comfortable, you know, but I talk to a lot of people out there that are so frustrated and upset.
Mhm.
Ryan, with those muscle cramps, how do you sleep? How do you sleep at night? Does it keep you up?
I wouldn't say it's much cramps. I take care of the cramps with Mexilitine and good hydration. I mean, the cramps do suck, but they're largely over because I don't have a lot of muscle mass left. It's the achiness. Always, either lately it's just being in my chair all day and just getting someone to move you around. But before I went in my chair, it was just walking around. And, you know, your hips get sore because every time there's a muscle group that's atrophied, something else is making up for it and getting overused and taxed. You know, and you get joint issues, and like I said, 10 years ago, no problem to talk about it with your physician to get it taken care of. Now, if you bring it up, they run from it. You know, make people feel ashamed for complaining about their pain. My brother's a cardiologist. He and I've talked about it before. You know, he was trained to to not ignore people's pain, and the complete 180 that has happened is incredible. I mean, we all get why it happened. We all get the opioid crisis, what it's done to people, but man.
But you have an honest opioid need and not an abuse. Yeah.
Well, it's like you had to doctors don't even, physicians don't even want to talk about it. We'll push you off to a pain doctor, and that, yeah, that's just frustrating. Like I said, I get what I want now, which is wonderful. So I can be comfortable, but man, there were some years there where it's like, what the heck is going on? And I have friends now that I talk to too, they can't get treated for pain. Something needs to be done about that.
Yes.
It's not right.
Yeah, we agree. That's something that she goes through as well, is just the nonstop pain.
Yeah. Can't ignore it.
No,
Thank you.
same
And-
thing as a pain pill.
Thank you for bringing that up. Dean, do you want to talk about quality of life?
I have no pain. There's the other side of the spectrum. I'm 2 years into my diagnosis. I'm still walking. And of course, I've moved on to a walker instead of a stick because too many falls. I'm falling about 3 or 4 times a week. Of course, I'm Tonka tough, so I crawl to something, stand back up. But I was done with falling. I was done with that. The question on the table is what, how the priorities have changed. What did you?
Yeah,
I had a bucket list and I travel every month. I've gone to see 4 different states to see cousins and do genealogy work and to show them the pictures that I have. And, I have relatives I have never met and I've got all their stuff now. And I've got cousins I haven't seen in over 45 years and I've seen them. So, my priorities have definitely changed toward my family and making sure that all that's closed in. And I do my bucket list. Went to Costa Rica with my wife and her 5 brothers and their spouses and her mom and dad. We were a huge group and we just tore Costa Rica up. It was fantastic. Yeah. And because of the familial variety that our family has, I felt like I can't sit on the sideline and just let this go. I can't. If you've got sporadic, you're just a one and done. Okay, I get that. But I got 8 kids. My wife and I, we have 8 kids, not combined or not yours and mine and ours. We have 8 kids.
of all 8.
Yeah, and us 3, me and my 2 siblings, we all have it. So I hope that's not how that trickles down to my kids. But I'm signed up with NEALS. That's the Northeastern ALS organization. And I've been accepted for an ambassadorship down with that organization. I'm going to go get training in November. It's a few days long so that I can talk to have more opportunities to speak on it and bring attention to it. Because I promise you, if you have a disease like this in your family, it is a big deal. Because my kids are at a minimum, half of them are looking like they're going to have it. So I'm fighting. I got the gloves on. It's going down,
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.